Schuylkill, Pennsylvania, 1985. A small, quiet town of about 5,800 residents. Life here is defined by a sense of familiarity and security. Everyone knows their neighbors. Children play outside until the streetlights flicker on. Yet, that very August, this peace, this sense of security, would be shattered when a young boy would go missing. August 21st, 1985. David Reed is 13 years old. A local paperboy with dreams of becoming a pilot, David was known to be sweet, protective, and affectionate. He never left home without telling his mother goodbye. David leaves his house to go ride his bike, like he does nearly every day. It was by all accounts just a normal Wednesday, but David would never return home. When night fell and David failed to come home for dinner, his family's concern quickly turns to panic. David had juvenile diabetes, and his family feared he had suffered a medical emergency. The search for David began immediately. Firemen searched his usual hangout spots, local playgrounds, and the railroad tracks. Police joined shortly after, when they got word there was a young boy missing. When kids go missing in Schuylkill, police usually check their friends' houses, find they had stayed a little bit longer than they should have, and are returned home. But David was nowhere to be found. Given how unusual this was for a town like Schuylkill, initial theories from investigators were that he might be a runaway. This is quickly dismissed by his family. He had no reason to leave and was deeply attached to his family. The first realization that something was wrong came when David's sister, Virginia, found his bicycle abandoned in the bushes by the railroad tracks. To David, that bike was his world, and he would never have left it behind voluntarily. The bike isn't damaged. There are no signs of a struggle. It's just David's bike, abandoned in a place he would go to all the time. Within the first couple of days, rumors began to circulate the small town. David had been spotted with several individuals at the railroad tracks. David was seen at a house party on Cadwell Street. These rumors were investigated. People were interviewed. And yet, not one person in either case confirmed seeing David when questioned by police. Neither yielded results. There were virtually no leads. Weeks turn into months. The investigation stalls. David's mother kept his room exactly as it was, wrapped Christmas presents for him, clinging to the hope that he would come home. December 15th, 1985. 4 months after David vanished, a resident is searching for their lost cat up a steep embankment in the woods behind Cadwell Street. He stumbles upon something and calls the police. The responding officer arrives at the residence, shocked to find a human skull sitting on the table. Why the man decided to remove the skull and bring it home remains unclear. The resident takes police back to the same spot, where they soon find more remains nearby, along with a white t-shirt and blue jeans, clothing that matched David's when he went missing 4 months prior. While his mother initially held out hope, dental records eventually confirm the remains are David's. The discovery shocks the community. What was first a strange disappearance now brings with it the crushing reality of a boy found dead in the woods. As the investigation takes a new turn, media coverage of the case ramps up. New tips and leads come in. And with these, a local resident, Joe Geiger, turns over a jawbone and other bone fragments to the police. He claims his dogs have been bringing them home. He said he didn't think much of it. He had been putting them in a bucket.
David Reed of Schuylkill Haven disappeared in the summer of 1985.
They came back to the house and they were chewing on bones, and at the time, I didn't think nothing of it.
Police hope the additional bone fragments could help determine the cause of death. There are no eyewitnesses and no other physical evidence besides David's remains. The initial autopsy attributes David's death to natural causes related to his diabetes. The investigators are not satisfied with this conclusion. A subsequent examination by anthropologist Dr. Janet Monge revealed a burst fracture at the back of the skull, suggesting David had been hit by something with great force or had fallen. However, the cause of death is officially listed as undetermined. Police get a new lead from a woman named Kathy. The information she provides seems to suggest David got into a blue van. Kathy even provided the plate number. Police run the registration. Nothing comes back. Police began looking for the vehicle across the entire county, stopping blue vans and notifying law enforcement in the area to be on the lookout. The lead goes nowhere. David's family buries his remains, none of them knowing exactly what happened to David. And the case goes cold for over 15 years. As the years go by, David's sister, Virginia, kept going, trying to provide leads and keep the investigation alive. David's mother passes away from health complications, never knowing what happened to her son. The silence was finally broken when Robert Bettner of the Pennsylvania State Police was assigned to reopen the case. Driven by a commitment to provide the Reed family and the Schuylkill Haven community with closure, Bettner focuses on the information gathered and the interviews conducted when David first went missing. This included one individual who had refused to cooperate with the initial investigation in 1985. Bettner meets with the man currently serving a prison sentence for selling drugs. He gives Bettner a lead that changes the direction of the investigation. He provides Bettner with a name: a man who is a convicted sexual predator that lives in Schuylkill Haven. A man who owned a blue van. Bettner feels the investigation is about to have a new breakthrough. He prepares to track down and question the man. But before he could, the man voluntarily arrives at the police station in Schuylkill Haven. He was there for his annual Megan's Law registration, a Pennsylvania law that requires offenders to update their place of residence should they change their address within the state. He is questioned at length. The man cooperates. Bettner cross-references the interview with the suspect's record. The man was incarcerated during the time David went missing. He is cleared as a suspect. Bettner is back at square one. He begins talking to anyone that had anything to do with the Reed family. One name continually comes up: Joe Geiger, the same man that had personally given David's bones directly to police nearly 20 years ago. Geiger had become a recluse after David's disappearance, no longer associating with anyone he had previously known. Rumors began to circulate. Bettner brings Geiger into the precinct for an interview. He questions him at length about David's bones, his whereabouts during the time of David's disappearance, finally telling Joe about the rumors going around town about him. He had no alibi. He had nowhere to run. Joe Geiger breaks down, admitting to being there. He saw David die, but claims he wasn't the one that murdered him. He says that David's murderer is John Fry. John Fry was friends with David in their youth. As a kid, he was known to get into trouble. having been caught drinking and smoking weed. Geiger tells police that he, David, and John Fry would hang out by the bank wall near the train tracks. Geiger claimed that John had struck David in the face, causing him to fall backward, hitting his head. John is brought in for questioning. John tells police a story consistent with Geiger's account, except he claims that it was Geiger who hit David. Police now know that one of these two men killed David Reed. They also know they need more information to determine who. January 21st, 2007. With the hope that improvements in forensic technology could give police more evidence, David's body is exhumed for a second forensic review. Armed with new details about exactly what happened to David, investigators hope to gain more insight, anything that could help determine which of these two men killed David. Detective Bettner finds a leading forensic anthropologist at the University of Florida, Dr. Anthony Falsetti, one he believes would be best suited to examine David's remains. Dr. Janet Monge would also rejoin the team for the examination. David's body is flown to Tampa, Florida. The medical CT scans reveal hairline fractures on David's cheek, consistent with a blow to the face that would have caused David to fall backward and strike his head. The fracture was on the right side of David's face. It was consistent with a strike from a left-handed person. Geiger is left-handed. John Fry is right-handed. With this new examination, David's official cause of death is changed from undetermined to homicide. For the first time in nearly 23 years, police can now make an arrest in the case of David Reed. With the new forensic evidence showing the fractures on David's cheek, along with Joe Geiger's account, police believe they finally have enough to make an arrest. August 21st, 2008. 23 years later, on the anniversary of David's disappearance, Joe Geiger is arrested, charged with the murder of David Reed. Tragically, Virginia would not live to see it. She passes away in her home shortly after Geiger's arrest, having spent 2 decades fighting for David's case. Geiger is offered a plea agreement by prosecutors. Part of the agreement was that he must give the full, truthful account of what happened to David, and in exchange, prosecutors would drop the third-degree murder charge. Prosecutors felt that they may have a difficult time securing a third-degree murder conviction, as they did not think Geiger intended to kill David. Rather than risk an acquittal, the Reed family agrees that the plea deal is the best option. Geiger's testimony was that back in 1985, he had been growing marijuana plants near his home. Plants were going missing. He claims that he had confronted David in a parked train car while he, David, and John Fry were smoking weed, believing David was the one stealing his marijuana plants. Geiger confessed to punching David during the confrontation, who then fell and hit his head on the inside wall of the train car. Geiger says he left after he realized he had knocked David unconscious. He returned later, hoping that David would be gone. Unfortunately, David was still there, having succumbed to his injuries. Rather than seeking help, Geiger panicked and hid the body in the woods, in a thicket, to be left to the elements. Medical experts believe that if he had sought help for David immediately, he might have survived. Joe Geiger pleaded guilty to involuntary manslaughter, abuse of a corpse, tampering with evidence, and simple assault. The judge sentenced him to no more than 2 years in prison and 3 years of probation upon his release.